So first and foremost, I want to ask that you're somebody who everyone I can think of in my life has heard the voice of. They don't necessarily know
Ah,
that it's Rob Paulsen providing the voice,
yeah,
but they know
right.
that it's you. And I'm curious when you decided to specifically in your career be a voice actor as opposed to a singer or a traditional on-screen actor.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for that's a great question. There, I came out here, that is to L.A., ostensibly to do exactly what you suggested. I was a singer who became an actor, and I moved out here to do music and live action. 1978, 41 years ago this June, and I was doing a lot of demos for songwriters, episodic television, a lot of on-camera commercials. Certainly was interested in doing voice work, but and I'd certainly been inspired by the Pythons and Jonathan Winters and Peter Sellers, all the usual suspects, Mel Blanc. But it wasn't nearly the open door in terms of opportunity that it is now. But the opportunity did present itself in the mid '80s in the guise of Transformers and GI Joe. It was just another audition. Hey, do you feel like doing cartoons? Of course, I want to work. And cartoons, I wasn't familiar with Transformers. It was brand new. GI Joe was something that was around since I've been a kid, not in a cartoon form. But of course, I just want to work and jumped on it. And it didn't take long for me to realize, wow, this is the gig, because nobody cares what I look like. When you're first starting out, it is all about whether or not you fit the suit. Having talent is certainly a plus, but generally to get going, it's about your look. And I totally understand that. But you find that there are a million average looking kids from Michigan and everywhere else in the world here in LA. So to not be limited by that was huge. And it didn't take me long to figure out that this was pretty swell. Then I started singing in character and using my, musical vocal skills, and loved it. So I think it was probably around 19 mid 90s, early 90s, when I said, I think I'm going to really concentrate on this aspect of the business. So I would love to do on camera again, but it turns out that the characters have become famous, and make no mistake, I don't draw them and I don't write them. I'm only a part of it, but it was a great move, because now at, what am I, 63 now, nobody still cares what I look like. And that's been a remarkably wonderful thing, because I'm only limited by my creativity and my talent and the niceness of people to hire me. So it was a smart move for me.
Some people only hang out with people in their profession, and then other people, the second they're not working, stay as far away as possible from their peers.
Ah,
Where are you at
right.
in terms of your everyday life with other voiceover people?
Oh, they're my very best friends in the world. In fact, I often spend weekends with them. This weekend I was with John DiMaggio and Maurice LaMarche and Frank Welker and Peter Cullen and Gray Delisle, and a whole bunch of us were at a convention in Calgary. And then I saw Frank yesterday at work. So I hang with these people all the time. At work, it is nothing. I've got to tell you, man, that's the gig. When you come out here, if you ever come out here and you want to go see a recording session, let me know, because that's really fun. When you're surrounded by the people whom I just mentioned and others, it's a really wonderful thing to watch. So, work is a term that's in quotes. We know it's our job, but it's just a blast to hang out with these people. And most of them have become friends of my whole family. So Mark Hamill and Kevin Michael Richardson and Frank Welker and Tress MacNeille and all those people come to, my kid's birthday parties when he was getting a bit older, and his graduation and his wedding. And so these are people I've known in many cases 30 and sometimes 40 years, and we are very close. But I also have a lot of very close on-camera friends: Sean Astin, Seth Green, Brad Garrett, Carrie Elwes, all people who do a lot of on-camera stuff, and they cross over doing voice work. Clancy Brown, just really good buddies who do a ton of on-camera stuff too. And acting is acting. Certainly I work with my voice 95% of the time, but the reason that these characters become memorable is because they're well acted and well produced and all of that, and not just by me, but Nancy Cartwright and Hank Azaria and all these people are just wonderful actors and good friends. So it's a pretty much win-win all the way around.
Right. Now, you just mentioned that it's not work when you're actually on the set, but I'd imagine that voice maintenance itself is a ton of work. And I know that you overcame some health troubles, really glad to hear all that. But I'm curious what kind of maintenance you have to do to keep your voice in tip-top shape.
Boy, I wish that I had some really profound, deep, secret that I could market, but I don't. I just am cognizant of the fact that it is injurable, if that's a word, so that I'm cognizant of when I've pushed it, and I know myself. I have no problem saying to the producer, you're good for about another hour with this character before I got to take a break, and we all do that, especially a guy like Frank Welker who does a lot of monster sounds and animal sounds, and it can really tear up your throat. And if it's something that is kind of onerous, there's a point at which it becomes damaging, and I don't go past that point. And I certainly don't recommend people do. I've counseled other younger actors who often find themselves in circumstances which are going to be deleterious to their voice. And I always tell them, man, there's nothing wrong with having a very calm chat with the producer saying, I really want to give you what you want, but I have to make a living. So can we kind of parse this thing up or record it on a Friday so I can have Saturday and Sunday to recuperate? If you go to a sporting event and you scream your lungs out for an hour, you're worn out. Your voice gets blasted. And the same thing happens with what we do. So I don't have any really specific regimen. I drink a lot of water. That is partially because I'm thirsty, but also partially because I just keep my voice lubricated. But the throat cancer was very difficult, not in terms of diagnosis and treatment. The treatment was real clear right away. Enduring the treatment was an issue. That was very tough. That beat the daylights out of my throat and my mouth, and I was told at the beginning that it would. And I was also told, look, we know we can save your life, and they were utterly sure of that, but they were not sure if they could save my instrument, as it were. They said, you'll be able to talk. I don't know if you can sing the way you do now, or you'll be able to do your job at the same level, but that's not our job to make sure you can work. And I totally got that. There was no poor me or, oh my God, and none of that. It was my turn. And the treatment was absolutely, that was brutal. It's tough for the obvious reasons, because what we're doing now is speak, swallow, eat, drink, and it's just almost impossible to do that for a few months. But I am back, and so far nobody has called me and said, hey man, your throat cancer treatment made it so you can't do the goofy character anymore, so we got to fire you. Not at all. I'm working as much as I ever have. So I'm a very lucky guy, and keep very close tabs on when it's time for me to take a break.
Wonderful to hear all that. And of course, you're associated with many, many famous animated characters, and also, the Got Milk campaign, a lot of campaigns like that. But,
how about that?
But I'm also curious about the name Robert Paulsen and the Fight Club associations. Is that something that you hear every day?
Not every day, but probably every week. Maybe every couple weeks, but often. And I just literally had that question yesterday on Twitter. How often do you hear the reference, and B, does it bother you? And my response was all the time. And no, it doesn't bother me at all. I love David Fincher. I'm a big Brad Pitt, Ed Norton fan. Love the movie. I remember actually had a good buddy of mine who was working on that movie, and he called me at the end of one of the days of work. He said, man, you're not going to believe this, but I've been chanting your name all day. I said, what are you talking about? He said, I'm working on this David Fincher movie, and there's this scene in which Meat Loaf plays a character named Robert Paulsen, and he dies in the movie, and we chant your name. And I said, you're kidding. And I waited till it came out, and I thought, oh my God, that was pretty cool. I've never heard a bunch of movie stars chanting my name before, so that was pretty cool.
Right. So I believe you have a book in the works. Is that your next project that you
I
can
do.
talk about?
Yeah, thank you. I do. I have a book that is coming out October 8th called Voice Lessons, and the lessons therein not. It's not a, another Hollywood memoir about then I did this, and then you might remember me from this, and then I got fired from this, but I found my way back to this. I don't believe the world needs another Hollywood memoir, especially from a guy who is not really famous, but the characters are. However, once somebody who does what I do, has the issue with throat cancer, now I have a much more interesting story for obvious reasons. But it turns out that what the best part of my career has been is, and what the book is about, is that during this really wonderful gig, I have had the incredible good fortune of meeting so many children and their parents who are going through impossibly difficult circumstances, things that I don't know you personally, but things that I know certainly I will never have to deal with, the death of a child or the impending death of a child, or I had my horrible circumstance, but that's in quotes, it's relative. But turns out that these characters are far, far, far more important to people than I ever knew. The stories I hear all the time, both in terms of my own practical experience and anecdotally about, man, you don't know this, Mr. Paulson, but I did 3 tours of duty in Iraq, and the only thing that calmed me down was watching Animaniacs after I spent, the day out having people shoot at me. Or my, I was a foster child and was on my own from the time I was 6 months old. I went through 4 different homes between 6 months and 12 years old. But as long as there was a TV, I knew that I could connect with Ninja Turtles. Or, my mother had ovarian cancer and she ultimately didn't make it, but she laughed every day at Pinky and the Brain. Honest to God, how would I ever have known that? And I never knew that all those experiences were going to prepare me for being able to take my own punch. And I got to say, that's what the title says, voice lessons, how an Animaniac, Pinky, and a couple of Ninja Turtles saved my life. And they did all by extension, because it helped me to put my own struggle in perspective and, for lack of a better term, suck it up when things got really tough, because I knew that I had the incredible good fortune of having all this humor and joy associated with all these characters that helped probably thousands of other people. And these parents would keep in touch with me after their children died and continue to tell me how important Raphael or Yakko or Pinky or Carl Weezer or Donatello, whatever, had been to their families. And it got me through my own stuff. It propelled me to deal with it and to put everything in context. And I felt now I have a book that is, I think, interesting. And continually I get information from people about how important these characters have been. Often the people that they talk about have passed away 10, 15, 20 years ago, but they still love fill in the blank for what it brought to them. And it's not just me, all of us. Tom Kenny, who's SpongeBob, Billy West, from Futurama, it doesn't matter. I'm learning that these characters are so much more than a rating point or a paycheck or an action figure. And it's a great story, and I'm really proud to be able to kind of shine a light on the many folks who put these things together. It's a profound connection. So I think it's a good story.
That's amazing. I really look forward to reading all that. So I guess
in
closing, Rob, any last words for the kids?
Yeah, laughter is the best medicine. The cool thing is you can't OD and the refills are free. That's what I say. And it helped me a lot. And that's pretty much what I say to people, is just laugh from your soul at least once a day. It's a pretty good prescription, and you don't have to worry about getting it refilled.